Welcome to the Addison podcast, where we talk about what it actually takes to hit your first six or multi-six figures in business. I'm Addison, certified clinical hypnotherapist and online business coach for entrepreneurs. And 3 years ago, I decided that nursing wasn't for me, dropped out of nursing school, and dove into the online space. From free hypnosis audios to unfiltered conversations and business advice, this is the space for you to take radical responsibility towards creating your dream business. Let's dive in. Welcome back to the podcast, guys. I'm so excited to bring another guest in for our little guest series. We have Alyssa here today, who's the founder of Creating Freedom Agency. She helps women-led businesses build solid back-end systems and operations to scale sustainably. And overall, her mission is to partner with ambitious visionary women to amplify their impact and wealth. She's known for her no-nonsense, practical advice, and human-first approach, which is perfect for this podcast. And I love that you also blend sustainable success with strategy and like heart-led vision in your business or in your clients' businesses as well too. So I'm super excited to talk to you today. We're going to talk all things operations and wealth, and also how to know when and how to hire a team and who to even start with when you're hiring a team member, which is a huge topic of conversation in the online space. So I'm super excited. I would love to hear a little bit about your journey and how you started a creative agency, because I think that's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really excited to be here today. I feel like I could go on about this forever. So I'm going to keep this concise and kind of go with the Cole's Notes version. But essentially, I see a lot of people in maybe an operations role that have come from corporate, and I've actually done the opposite. So I've really gotten my hands dirty in customer service and customer experience. I've gone through sales jobs, retail, bartending, serving, restaurants, all of that kind of stuff. And I've always worked my way up to a manager role really quickly. So I'm very used to like managing teams, training, creating systems and all that. And then I took a really big pivot and I went into school actually to become a counselor and a life coach, which led me to the online business world. And I was doing that for a few years and I really loved that work, but there was something in me that still really just missed leading a team and working with the systems of it all. So I slowly just took on a couple of freelance clients, and eventually I thought, why not just open the agency doors? We did that last year and we filled up pretty much within the first 6 weeks of being open.
That's incredible. What do you think led to filling your services in the agency so quickly?
I think one thing was just a lot of the relationships that I built when I was in the coaching business. So I had my coaching business for about 2.5 years, and I built some really strong and solid relationships with people, genuine relationships. So when I made that pivot, I think people could kind of see that it was a bit of a natural thing for me. So a lot of the clients were initially people that I'd known for years or word of mouth referrals from them. And just like the occasional person kind of popping up on Instagram. But I think something that really makes us stand out and continues to is just our different approach to the work. We're very heart-centered. We're very led by purpose, and money kind of second to all of that. So how do we get to impact this ripple effect of people having this positive change in their lives through the people that we get to support? So I think a lot of people really resonate with that vision.
I love that. And I love the topic of like moving. I mean, you practice what you preach, right? And really followed your passion through that pivot. And something happened very similar to me when I made the pivot from hypnotherapist or, coach from other areas in my business, where I launched a group program and it was like sold out in the matter of, I want to say seconds, but it wasn't that. It was a month. But very similar to your story, where when you're leading with that heart and purpose, I think it can happen so quickly. So I love hearing that. And something that's come up a lot for my clients recently, that are scaling businesses or getting to the point where they're at capacity and they're like, I know I need to hire. It's something that is in the back of mind, but there's a lot of different pieces that come to play, and that, hiring is not just, yeah, let me find someone on Instagram and I'll click purchase and we'll move forward, right? There's so many pieces at play, and a lot of mindset stuff that comes into it, the strategy behind like, who do I hire? So I'm really excited to talk to you about this because I even had a conversation with a client this week who was having like some, confusion around where do I even start? And we had this whole conversation about, whether or not even going with the operations and system side of things or an OBM is the first place that you should hire. Because a lot of OBMs will say in this space, like, yep, this is your first hire. But in reality, you have to be at a certain income level, I think, to even make that happen and make it worth it. And I've gone through my fair share of hiring and, almost wasting money on different areas because it wasn't the right thing for me. And have gotten to a place where I'm really, really happy with where my team is at and my OBM is at, but it's because I'm at a certain level of income. So I love this conversation of, even starting from the ground up, like when it's time to hire, how you should hire, where do you find these people, all of the things. And so I'm really excited to dive into that. But with hiring, where do you feel like people are just like where they should be to know, yep, it's time. I know that I should hire someone, and then we
Yeah.
can kind of talk about where and how to identify who that right person is.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that you said something that a lot of people have had an experience with is that they've hired someone who maybe wasn't the right fit or the right time for them, whether it be a team member or a mentor, anything like that. I think a lot of us have had experiences like that. So I'm a really huge advocate for knowing what you need before hiring. And I always encourage clients before they hire us to check in with these things. So I think in knowing when it's time to hire, it really comes down to two things. And one is more of a reactive approach and one is more proactive. So reactive generally is like, I am full. I have no time. I don't know why I started this business in the first place. I want to burn it all down. Like, that place where you're at when you're like, I just have so much to do and I can't keep track of everything. And I really like to encourage people to actually be proactive before they get to that place to think about hiring. Because we've definitely brought on clients who are like, I just need to hand stuff over to you very quickly so I can just be with my clients or launch this thing or increase my sales or go on vacation. But we really love a proactive approach. So then it doesn't create this like stressful, pressurized container where you can see, okay, I'm starting to fill up. I have profit in my business. That's the key point. You have profit in your business to reinvest into having someone come into your team. And I think that's the key point is when you have the money, as in the profit, it's not coming out of your own owner's pay or pockets. And then also when you're feeling that need of like, there are certain things in my business that I don't need to be doing, I don't like doing, it's taking away from my time that I could be spending marketing or selling or just simply being with my client or my family.
Yeah, I love that. I think the key there is also that profit, like you're paying yourself
Yeah.
and you also have, extra. And then from there, that can be a conversation of where's the right place to go. And something that I think is that I've noticed is just that it's going to be different for everyone. Like something that was really helpful for me at a certain point in my business was to have someone that was mapping out my marketing strategy for me and even writing captions. And then I would take the posting over, would do the graphics. Like that was super, super helpful for me at this point in my business. I want to have a hand in every aspect of my marketing. And so that just wouldn't work for me anymore. So there's also like these phases, different points in your business where not necessarily you want to like leave someone behind and not hire or not have them on your team anymore. But, I think that just goes to show that depending on you as a person and the bottlenecks in your business and also, like you said, what you don't like doing, what's really holding you back can kind of guide where the first place is to hire. So a question that I get a lot is like, when I'm hiring, as service providers, like, should I hire someone that's going to help me like be a subcontractor with my clients first, or someone that's going to help me and my business first? And I'd love to hear like your topic or your take on that, and like how to know, okay, let me hire someone for my marketing or an OBM or systems or whatever, versus no, I'm going to have someone take over my client work so I can do these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that all comes back to almost like the beginning point and the foundation of what kind of business are you wanting to build? Because for me, I do want to have that agency model. I do want to have multiple people in client facing roles. And that really does require me to have a lot of trust and a lot of time to train my clients so that they understand the standards of CFA, they understand all of the ethics, the values, everything like that. So I'd say that it does take a certain level of leadership and management. It's definitely a big management role to have subcontractors come in and doing client work. So say if you do work in operations, or maybe you do email marketing, social media management, you are going to have to be looking over a team and what they're doing. Whereas if you're bringing someone to work on the back end of your business, you're often bringing in someone who's maybe more of an expert. So maybe it is an OBM and systems expert. Maybe it is a social media manager. Maybe it's someone who does your Pinterest for you. And you can kind of hand that off and hand that over. There's still a management aspect to it, but you're not necessarily kind of like watching over every piece. You don't need to do like those final reviews and edits and make sure everything looks good before it goes out to a client, right? So it's definitely like a different level of responsibility that you're also putting on the team and on yourself.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I totally agree with that. So it's kind of just looking at the big picture then and deciding, is
Mhm.
this something I want to explore? Which also leads me to like, I actually built an OBM agency before I pivoted my business, and I hated the team management aspect of it. I love having an OBM that kind of manages me a little bit, but in my, um, like from my perspective at that time, I was excited about it and I wanted to go that route. And so we did it. And then I was like, wow, I don't think I love the team management aspect. I liked working with and being really hands-on in businesses and not really handing it off. And I explored, is this a control thing? Is this like, do I just not trust my teammates? And ultimately it just was, I just didn't like the team management aspect. So do you think there's this level of also exploration that comes with team, management, or with hiring a team, or with, the just in general, like hiring for your business, that people should allow themselves to go down the route of kind of that exploration of what's right for me? And have you noticed that with a lot of people that have, hired in the past and then are like, no, it wasn't right. Here I am, and what would you say is your take on that too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I mean, I will say that arguably self awareness is one of the best skills that an entrepreneur can have. And I think that's where it really does start at the beginning of like asking yourself those questions of how much am I willing to hand over? What do I still want to have my hands in? What maybe am I not ready to release that control over? But also, again, like what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you love? What do you not love? All of that kind of stuff is going to come into play all throughout also managing and hiring teams. So as you're continuing to grow your business, so it might be someone that you bring on, you're wanting to bring someone else on, it's going to take a lot of self-awareness through every single step of how do you feel about this? And also like, is this strategically what your business needs? So it's a little bit of like that personal and strategic reflection that's needed in every single step. And I think a big piece that we can fall into, especially in the online spaces, there's a lot of messaging out there that's like, step into the CEO role and hire an OBM, step into the CEO role and you should hire a VA right now. And it's very much people are telling you, often the OBM and the VA, who are saying it's your best first step to hire a VA. But really, is it your best first step to hire a VA if you don't actually know what you want to hand off yet? If you don't actually have those systems in place, so then you're going to have to be hand holding them. If maybe they're not specialized in those areas that you need them to be specialized in, because every VA generally will have those strengths and those weaknesses, and some of them will be generalized and stronger and weaker in different areas. So it definitely takes a lot of self and personal and also strategic and logistical awareness as well.
Yeah. And I think from your perspective, really specializing in systems and operations, that kind of leads me to another question that I often get, which is, and even I heard as an OBM, which is like, I have to like get my ducks in a row before I hire with the system side of things. So what is your perspective on that? Like, where you really do handle the systems and operations side of things, what systems should be in place before you hire. And if you don't have any systems in place, any automations or anything in place, then, is that the place you should start?
Yeah, so I'm actually, and this is probably going to be different than what a lot of people in my role are going to say. I actually think that it's probably better rather than jumping to invest in a retainer or a long term team member. I think it's a great, and maybe I am a little biased here. I think it's a great idea to bring someone in at a project capacity. So, really coming in and seeing what systems are existing, what's actually, what's working strongly, what's maybe not working so great and efficiently, get those all in order. So maybe it's your client onboarding, maybe it's your booking processes, maybe it's your CRM like Dubsado or Honeybook, all of that kind of stuff. Big one as well as your project management. So when you hand off to your team, they know what's happening. I think it's great to have those in place before bringing that team member on. And that's going to save you a lot of money and time in the long run to have those pieces in place before bringing someone on.
Is there one area or like two areas that you would say they should really, if they're listening to this and aren't, quite sure of even the systems and processes, like is onboarding the most important? Is booking process, or is like, just system, a project, let's say, going through all of those things most important? What would you say in your expert opinion is like, this is what you need in order to even allow a VA or an OBM or someone else to come into your space to support you?
So the difficult part is that it's not going to be a stock and standard answer for every business, right? And that's where I think operations and systems, it's so custom. We create custom projects and retainers for everybody because of this, right? Because you might be a digital product based business, or maybe it's more group program centered, or maybe you're really one-on-one client centered. So really taking a big picture look at how are your clients or customers coming into your business? Is it through a checkout process through Thrivecart? Is it through your CRM for Dubsado for a one-on-one? Are you maybe doing Stripe invoicing for a group program? Like there's so many different potentials. And so I would say number one would be get your client facing things in order. So then you can make sure that those are being handled with a lot of consistency when you do hand that off to a team, because you don't want some people to be getting one experience and some to be getting another. So anything client customer facing. And then also second of all would be project management. So project and task management. So you do have a solid system where you're delegating tasks to your VA through something that's structured, where you can see what's going on with them. They can see what's going on with you. What are your bigger picture goals? What are the projects you're working towards? We have seen everywhere from people having super structured ClickUp systems to working within our Notion client portals that we provide, all the way to like people coming in and saying, I used to delegate via email or Voxer. And I'm like, oh my girl, please don't delegate via Voxer. So I would definitely say project, task management, whatever that looks like for you. Every system's going to be different for every brain, but get that in order before delegating for sure.
Yeah, I've definitely heard that with the Slack delegation, or, like, I think those are great platforms to connect with your team, but ultimately there should be an external place that you're keeping track of that and even triaging like what's most priority, etc. Like I've even heard of people with to-do lists in their notes app, and like that's their form of project management. So definitely, I think this is just a kind of a side note, but I do get a lot of questions about project management and stuff a lot. I would love to hear from you, like if someone is totally new to that and just wants to get started somewhere where ClickUp is a little bit overwhelming. So where would you send them? Notion, Trello is their favorite that you have?
So I'm going to say that I am a Notion girly through and through and through. And I'll also say that I have spent about 5 years learning the platform and I'm still learning new things. So Notion is a really powerful and comprehensive platform. And I think that if you're able to get your hands on a good solid template that is great for a beginner level, I think that's a great place to start. But also you need to be having the understanding that you're going to need to put some hours into learning the platform so you know how to create different database items and all of that good stuff. But Asana, honestly, that served me so well for the first 2 to 3 years of business. I'd say once we got to that agency model and we had subcontractors and we started to really provide those client portals, we needed Notion. But if you're just working internally between you and a VA, Asana is so great. It's so simple. So I would recommend starting there. And I find that it works a little bit better than the Trello board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Just because it has those different views and stuff as well too that are really simple to toggle between. So I love that.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit about like how to know who to hire, when to hire, having that extra profit. I think the other two things that you mentioned are really important when it comes to hiring is the emotions that come up through that process and the mindset. We kind of chit chatted beforehand and we're just sharing some, different things that we've noticed. You mentioned like leaning into the trust, fully allowing yourself to be supported by someone when you're hyper independent, releasing control around hiring. I mentioned that I've had a few clients that are like, can I support and hold this? What if I have an income dip? I would love to talk about some of these just mindset and emotions that come up when you are hiring, and how you would navigate that as someone who's in the back end of someone's business. What creates that trust, what allows, them to build the confidence that like I can support this team and, we're going to create consistency and income, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the trust piece is a great first place to start because I find that that's one of the biggest pieces. And I think one great way to mitigate that or kind of like lessen it on a logistical level is having those systems and processes in place. Because I think, like you mentioned, people have like things in Slack, people have things in notes in their phone. We've had clients who come into us where they're like, we have all of our to-do list on our whiteboard in front of us. So even just starting to get all of those things in order of how you work out of your minds and starting to get that all onto paper so you can hand that over step by step and say, these are the standards, these are how we operate within this business, really starts to set the foundation and the tone for the relationship right off the bat. So I'm a bit of a hard ass when I bring people onto the team. In the very first call, I'm like, these are the expectations. This is how you'll piss me off. Like, la, 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 la. And then I'm like, okay, let's have some fun. Like, I'm actually chill in the everyday conversation, but I set those standards really close up front. I'm like, we run a tight ship, but we also have a lot of fun here. So that's one kind of logistical way to do it. And also on the other side, there's going to be so much that comes up. I think especially a lot of us female founders that I've talked to do really have this like hyper independent approach to business, especially if we're coming out of a solopreneur role that we've been in for multiple years, or even, we're so emotionally close to our businesses as well. They really matter to us. We have so much heart in it. So I find that one big piece is just really, well, in one way, from if I'm going into the role of the person who's delegating, is I start small. So what are those pieces that you feel comfortable to hand off, and slowly building up from there, testing and seeing what this person's skill set is, where maybe those weaknesses are, and working from that like management leadership role. And then on the flip side, what I do is I actually apply a lot of my coaching and counseling skills with our clients. So I see this come up all the time in our first onboarding month, a lot of hesitancy to delegate to us and really let us into what's going on in the business, whether it be financially or whether it be systematically. People are always a little bit like, oh, my business is such a mess. I'm so sorry. I'm like, girl, you're good. But I almost have to like kind of sink in and see, this is a human on the other side of their business. How can I meet them in their humanity right now? What are they feeling, right? Being in that empathetic place of, you're a human, I'm a human. How do I meet you emotionally so we can get to that place? And then we move on to the logistics. So you might not necessarily have that person in your business that you're delegating to, but I would say a big benefit would be having a coach or a mentor or a therapist on the side that you can work through those emotional pieces with, because I think like anything in entrepreneurship, it brings up these little trigger points that we have, right? Whether it be from childhood or adolescence, early adulthood, or maybe it's generational. There's so many things that kind of poke at us. And I think really being supported, genuinely supported in our business, brings up a lot for people in a lot of different ways. So definitely like having that emotional support system on the side and doing a lot of self-reflection and noticing when that's coming up for you, whatever that looks like for you, journaling, meditation, somatics, all that good stuff, hypnosis.
Yeah, I love that. The other thing I think you mentioned is that you have a strategy for if people are hiring and they're like, oh my gosh, what if my income dips? Because I've had that happen before. I have this responsibility of a team as, an agency. How do you handle moments like that? Because I'm sure, it's business. Like you've had clients that have taken dips here and there, or, and maybe you haven't, but I feel like, everyone has had that happen here and there. So how do
Mhm.
you handle that from like the agency point of view? And do you have any strategies that can even just help people as they're listening to this build trust with themselves that,
Mhm.
once you, I think for me, like once I hired the team and I had that responsibility, it was non-negotiable that I make the money and pay them. You know what I mean? Something just shifted in me and that's almost intangible. But I'm curious to hear the more logistical side of things from your point of view as the provider, the service provider.
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say too, especially in the past year, we have learned so much about handling different things that come up like this. So, for one, from the very start, I will say that this hasn't always been the case, but from now on, I always make sure that the clients that we're bringing on board that they have that profit already built into their profit and loss statement over the course of our retainer. So I make sure, can you not I don't want to say afford, but like, is this part of your budget that you have while you can still pay yourself, still pay for other expenses you have, etc., over the course of our initial 4 to 6 month retainer? So I kind of like vet and ask those questions up front because I'm like, I don't want you to be in an uncomfortable place financially. I want you to feel supported, not stressed by bringing
Mhm.
us onto your team, right? So I do ask that question up front now, but we certainly have had that experience where our clients have had income dips or life happens, right? Like, I think that's a big thing as well, where income dips, it could be because it's business and things just kind of naturally roller coaster, or it could be simply that life, like shit kind of hits the fan. I hope I'm allowed to swear, but things hit the fan and you kind of have to just pause on business because life as you know it has been kind of shaken, right? And so that is something that's beyond your control. And I actually like to have conversations with my clients up front about that. We do have a very strict policy around pauses. So we need a month's notice generally. So if you can foresee that income dip coming in, or maybe you need to take time off for a vacation, or maybe it's like something's going on with your family, we do ask for a 30-day notice. But we're also very much like, you're a human and like this thing happened and you need time to just process that. Just take the time off. And from that perspective, we're able to do that because I've built it in strategically. We have extra profit to cover those pieces. Obviously, if all our clients at once said, we gotta take a pause, we'd be in trouble. But we've built that into our profit and loss statement. So that is the big piece. Make sure you're keeping that profit and loss statement. You're predicting your income, what's guaranteed, what's predicted, what are you launching, all of that stuff, and keeping a really close eye on your numbers, and maybe working with a bookkeeper or accountant that you can kind of consult with as well as you're looking at hiring. Um, I would just ask those questions though in the very first conversation that you have with different people that you're thinking of bringing on, whether it's a VA or an OBM or social media manager, and you're saying, of course, I'm not planning on just like up and taking a big old pause from our contract because it's a legal document, but what if something happens? What if a family emergency happens, or what if I do have an income dip? What's your policy around taking a pause on our contract? And I think a lot of people who do have that human first approach to business are always willing to say, yes, we can absolutely pause the contract for a month or 2 months or whatever it might be. Because as much as it's a legal document, I'm totally willing to throw that out if somebody's going through something really, like something that's really life changing.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that human approach is so important, and I think we've all had sticky situations, or in business. But I really like the conversation of like even as a CEO, we already mentioned profit, but looking at okay, what are my projections for the next 6 months if I do hire this person? Like, I'm not just hoping for the best. I'm, making sure that this is something that's repeatable in my
Mhm.
income that I can always make happen. I think from my perspective as the mindset coach, I always look at, what's happening under the surface as well too. Like, are we creating this like feast famine cycle in our business, because of a pattern, or, are you just expecting an income dip because you can't hold it? Like, there's so many pieces there as well too. But I love the idea of looking at that. And even, as a service provider, if you ever have the, that feeling of like, what if this client can't continue, or, having those open conversations of like, how are we making sure that this is mutually like beneficial to both of us, that we're not, you do have systems in place to repeat this income and stuff. And that I think also comes down to like the level of client that you're attracting, like in your agency with the systems and operations and retainers. While you might have like beginner business owners, just kind of considering like, what level of entrepreneur am I, or what level of person, ideal client, whatever you want to call it, am I attracting into my space, which I think is a whole other conversation. But
Oh
um
yeah.
yeah. But I do like want to just piggyback off that conversation of like human first and heart led. I love that you move with in your business with that first instead of income. Obviously the income is important, but can you just tell me a little bit about, the practices that you use, or, what that means to you guys as an agency leading human first? Obviously you already mentioned one, like you're having those conversations with your clients. There have been times where maybe you've taken a pause, or you've allowed, big things to happen and taken a step back. What other ways do you feel like that really shines through in your work outside of just the not focusing on the income?
Yeah, absolutely. So I I think that it comes first in like we hold it really high in our messaging because we have a pretty strict filter that we go through. So we do a lot of like pre-qualification work, and a big thing for me is I only want to work with businesses who have similar values as me. So people who are making a genuinely important, big, positive impact in the world. So if people come to me and they're like, I just want to make more money because I want to make more money, I'm like, great. Like, I'm happy for you. Like, power to you. I want more wealth in the hands of women. And also, I know personally, I work best with businesses where I can speak to the bigger vision of like, what's the impact that we're creating through your work. So I like first and foremost am looking for that when I'm having discovery calls, when I'm having conversations, all of that. And then another thing is like, we just have fun. Like, I think it's a little bit of something that we don't necessarily talk about when we talk about a human centered approach is we just have fun with our clients, right? Like, we know their pets' names, we know their kids' names, we know their birthdays, we know those personal details. We get on a call that's maybe a touch base call monthly where I'm like, how was your trip to so and so? Oh, how was your mom when you went to go see her? Like, we're having those human conversations. It's not like straight to business all the time. It's these like little personal touches. Even like my dad passed earlier this year, and one of my clients sent me a card and was like, it was the sweetest thing to receive. And that really just showed me, wow, I have the best client relationships out there. And it would go the exact same way around as well. Like, I'm sending out personalized gifts for birthdays. I'm sending out a massage to someone who really needs a break from their work, or I'm sending out tarot cards to somebody that I know really wanted this deck. And all of those pieces really come into play with the human centered approach. It's just looking at the person behind the screen, really. And yeah, just like being able to laugh with them and like shoot the shit with them and just have fun. And I do that a lot within my business as well. Like, we do co-working calls with the team, and a lot of the time we're just spending the first half an hour being like, how's life been? How was your trip? How was that music festival you went to lately? Oh my gosh, did you love that set? Like, we're having those normal conversations, right?
Yeah, I feel like with any of my clients, I could spend our full coaching call just chatting about life because they're genuine friends. So I
Mhm.
totally understand what you mean. And I actually invited some of my past clients to my wedding because they like became genuine friends through the
Mhm.
process of us working together. So I for sure understand what you mean by that. And I think that's so important because I know when I was hiring any team member in my business, and I love my OBM. We're like BFF. She stayed at my house recently. She's went to my bachelorette. She's like coming to
Love
my
it.
wedding, and she's going to come back here and help me with some things. And something that really like ultimately drew me to her and allowed me to make that big investment, and then like even sign contracts that were 6 or 12 months, or and just commit to that long term with her, was knowing that she saw the big vision. It wasn't just, oh, I'm another client, or another client that she's just doing the systems and operations for. It's like she's looking at my big vision and truly believes in it. And
Mhm.
so that makes me also build that trust with her over time, and has created this beautiful relationship. So I absolutely love what you said about all of that. And I think that kind of comes back to the trust and allowing yourself to be supported by someone too. You're going to trust someone that you build that genuine relationship with, and
Yeah,
it feels like you're connected outside of just the business and just the income. So I love all of that.
absolutely.
So
Oh, sorry. I was just going to
no,
jump in
go
quickly.
ahead. I want to
But
hear what have to
you
say.
can kind of like sense it, right? Like you can kind of sense that connection. I find that when I get on a Zoom call, like you almost like there's almost like this tangible connection that happens or not, where I'm like, yes, like we get each other. Like I got on a call the other day with someone who like recognized this disco ball behind me. You can't really see it, but and all the tarot decks, and immediately we were just talking and we were just having the best time. And she's like, I want to hire you. And I'm like, I want to work with you because she's a money coach who works with women and just has like this big vision and big mission. And I feel excited by it. I feel excited by that conversation of what her business is doing. And that's how I know it's like this soulmate client connection. And I also know from the hiring perspective, I've had a lot of calls with potential team members who I can tell they're like, I just want to be a VA for some extra money. And I'm like, cool, but maybe not the best fit. And then I have some people who come in and they're like, oh my gosh, I love what you're doing. I love that you stand for working with female founded businesses. I love that you really believe in like shaping a new future, all of that kind of stuff. And immediately I'm like, you get it. You get what the mission is. And I think that's one of like the most human things that we can do is just see the mission behind the business and like be involved in the vision as well.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier that we're so attached to our businesses because we built them from the ground up. So when you hear someone's excited about your vision just as much as you are, and wants it to grow and succeed and be bigger than it is now, and you actually can feel that from someone through the screen, you're like, yeah, let's go. Like, let's do it. And it is crazy how Zoom can connect you like that with someone. And even my OBM that I was mentioning before, when we met for the first time in person, I was like, I know you. Like, it doesn't feel any different over Zoom than it did in person. And I think that's like another beautiful thing about the online space too. And hiring is like, you get to make these beautiful relationships all over the world that you probably wouldn't have if you weren't here. So I think it's really cool. But overall, I would love to hear too, just where, if people are like, yeah, I need operations and systems or projects or whatever we talked about today, where can they connect with you or learn more about you, learn about your offerings, and yeah, just anything you want to share about your free gift as well too, just so people can start to connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us at our website or on Instagram at creatingfreedom.agency. So maybe I'll give that to you so you can put it in the show notes. But you can find all of our services there. We're actually in the middle of upgrading in a really exciting way with a new service for just doing systems audits. So basically, we have everything from a strategy session where it's in and out 90 minutes and you get a solid plan to implement, all the way to us getting inside of your business and building things up in a way so you can prep to hire somebody, or you can just continue to do things on your own, but with more automations and things that are saving you time, all the way to full operations assistance and management as well. So we kind of have this like full scope for all different stages of business. And we are we are working on another one as well right now. But currently our free gift is this challenge that did really well. We actually first introduced it as a spring clean your business challenge. And it was so loved that we just created it and said deep clean your business. So it's an all year round. It's a 4-week challenge where basically you go in and you audit your own business. So your systems, your tech, save yourself some money, save yourself some time, figure out who you need to hire. All of that good stuff is all included in that challenge as well.
Is that a great place for someone to start if they're not even like sure what offer to go with, and just to take themselves through and kind of guide them on their potential hire systems.
So that's probably going to be a good place where you can get into seeing where some of those bottlenecks exist and also kind of DIYing your own way through it. And then the new one that we do have coming out soon is going to be basically a DIY systems audit or a DIY business audit where you're going to go through a lifestyle analysis, goal clarity, and create an evolution plan for yourself. So that evolution plan is where you're going to get really clear on who you need to hire, when you need to hire, and creating your roadmap, which is it's basically this is a DIY version of our strategy session because it's the exact same template that we go through together one-on-one.
Nice. It sounds like people need to follow you on Instagram so they can get access to that when you drop
Oh
it.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I've loved this conversation. I'm really excited to get this out there. Do you have any last like system or operation or team hiring words of wisdom that you'd love to share? Just something maybe that's been present for you or your clients, something that you really feel like maybe the collective needs to hear today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, and I think that I've heard this said a lot about sales, is where we're holding ourselves back. We're almost doing an injustice to our clients. I think it's the same way with operations. I think operations is, maybe I want to say just as important as sales as marketing. I would say once you get to that kind of like further on stage, but once you get to that place where you're so constricted by all of the things on your plate, where you're doing everything manually, you're doing a disservice to the collective because you aren't able to serve at that high level that you're able to, or you're not as able to serve people, as many people as you potentially could. You're not able to launch that thing that's been on your heart for a while. So I would say that that's another big time to look into hiring or seeing what support you could have in your back end, whether it's on a long-term basis or just a short term, but really freeing up that time and that energy so you can just have that time to fill back into your business.
Yeah, I love that. And
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree. It's just like that's one way to an easy way to expand your capacity to impact more because it gives you the ability to create more content, get on TikTok, like go viral, like, have the systems to even hold the virality, like,
Yeah.
that that's important by any means, but it just expands the capacity for everything to grow outwards from there. And it's something that is also creating like that repeatable sales and repeatable client experience and stuff that retains clients and keeps them in your space. So I love that. And I totally agree.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely. And
you.
also I just want to add in there as
Yeah.
well. But another piece as well is that it frees up your time inside of your business to focus on those things to increase the sales and impact. And also another thing, I think the main point of our name, Creating Freedom, is that it just creates the freedom to spend that free time however you want. Maybe you do want to pour that back into your business, or maybe you're like, I'm actually expecting and I want to spend that time with, my child that I'm going to have soon. Or maybe it's that I just want to have fun and go traveling and hang out on the beach. Or maybe you want to spend more time with your partner or your friends. Like it really does free up your space to be like, how do I want to reinvest my time once you're no longer bogged down by all of those, all of this stuff that we need to do as business owners?
I will say it's so freeing to like seamlessly onboard clients when you're like on a flight or you're traveling or you're in the car and you're not really like paying attention and you don't have to do anything outside of maybe send the link. That's incredibly freeing. And I totally agree. It allows you to do all those things or even just sit on your couch and read a book all day and not have to onboard someone, like so many things. So I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for this conversation. I feel like it's going to be so helpful for those that are hiring right now to start to, understand where their bottlenecks are, where they could potentially go, look at their profit, all of the things. So thank you for coming, and I'm excited for this to get out there.
Me too. I'm really excited for this to get out there. I've been following your space for a while now, so I'm really excited to be giving this to your community.
Yay. Thank you so much. I'm excited too.
Thank you.